All right, old friends, new friends, everyone else in between, how you doing? Welcome to episode 1048, Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, to everyone out there, whether you're watching the show, whether you're listening. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Big shout out to our sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1841 Aber Road, just down the way from Highmark Stadium. 50-cent wings on Wednesdays, dollar chicken tendies on Thursday. Love that place. Sunny Reds. All right, this is our Thursday episode. I'm joined, first time in a hot minute, man, my good buddy over at the Buffalo Sports Collective, PK. What's going on, buddy? How you doing, man?
Not bad, not bad. Was doing a little bit of yard work beforehand. We moved into like a 150-year-old house. I think I mentioned that. We're
Yeah.
running into issues because it was also sat vacant for a year. So we're running into issues we weren't planning for. Like we started with bees, then the basement was leaking, so we got that done. We're running into ants now, so it's one thing after another. I don't advise people to buy a 150-year-old house. Go buy something a little bit newer. You won't run into the same type of issues.
Look at that. So these people are already learning something here on Talking Buffalo today. Do not buy a house that's 150 years old or older. Hey, man, at least the weather is getting to the point where I know there's a lot of work for you, but you at least get outside. It's been such a shitty winter. I felt like every time I had you on over the course of the winter, part of the spring, it was like always seemed to be at its worst too, whether it was just really shitty cold out, raining, windy, all the above, whatever. But we're in May now. It's getting nicer finally.
Yeah, spring is the worst season by far. I hate it. Like I know some people like don't mind the cold,
Yeah.
but I'd rather have snow and cold than constantly be rained on because you can't do anything in the rain. Winter, at least you can go out and not come in soaking wet. It's just I hate spring. I hate it.
Well, spring is good if you're a Buffalo Bandits fan
Very
because the
true. Yep.
Buffalo Bandits, which again, PK, you guys covered at the Buffalo Sports Collective so well. The Buffalo Bandits are going to the championship, trying to win their third consecutive championship. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. I'm going to get some insight for you. We're going to spend some time talking Buffalo Sabres. It's almost like a sitcom right now that you watch every week on TV, and there's a laugh track, and they're going to give you something, and then the Sabres account may as well just tweet, laugh, haha, with a GIF or something like that, so fans can laugh. A move made official today being Wednesday as we record this. Eric Staal is back in the organization. We'll talk about that. Some of the reaction I'm seeing from especially fans is just pretty wild. That's what happens when an organization, when you lose trust with your fans, everything you do is going to be ridiculed, second guessed, and that is certainly the case today. So we'll talk some Sabres. Before that, though, let's get a little bit of Buffalo Bills talk in here. I don't want to call this news because it's not related, at least as we're recording this, at all to the Buffalo Bills. But old friend of the team, a very polarizing figure to the Buffalo Bills, a player that guys have and girls have really, really strong opinions on. Gabe Davis released Wednesday by the Jacksonville Jaguars after just 1 year of a 3-year, $39 million deal that he signed. Now, your boy made like $20-some million for one season, and the Jags are eating a lot of cap money to cut him after 1 year. He was very disappointed with the Jags last year. He also was hurt too, and that's a factor as well. But anyway, Gabe Davis is, as we record this, a free agent. And I had some other stuff planned, but I wanted to shift gears because there's a chance that Gabe Davis, by the time people listen to this tomorrow, if they don't check this out until Friday, maybe he's already signed somewhere. But I'm going to ask you the question that everybody else, whether they were asked or not on social media, is chiming in with very, very strong opinions. Most of them going no. But with Gabe Davis, a free agent now, given the way the roster looks constructed after free agency, the draft, where they only got a guy in the 7th round. Of course, they signed Elijah Moore afterwards. Do you, PK, from the Buffalo Sports Collective, do you have any interest right now, Gabe Davis, a potential Buffalo Bills reunion?
So at first I saw this news, and like you said, everybody had strong opinions one way or the other. I was strongly against it
Mhm.
because it's like been there, done that. We've seen what he is, and I don't blame him fully for what happened at the end, because I think the expectations placed upon him were way too strong even to get going. They wanted him to be the wide receiver 2 when he was really a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4, and that's no shot at him whatsoever. It's just that's the type of skill set he has. I As I thought more about it and as day went on and work was dragging, I was like, I wouldn't hate it. I'm indifferent. If he comes back, I'm not going to hate it. I'm not going to love it, but I just don't see a fit for him right now on this team. And a lot of people were saying, okay, he could be the next Matt Collins. Well, offensively, yes, he's a great blocker. He can be a downfield threat. But when you're coming onto this team, you're expected to be, unless he's displaying like if they sign him, you know, how does that cut into Keon Coleman's role? How does that cut
Huh?
into, the other wide on the outside roles? But like offensively, he fits the Matt Collins role perfectly on the offense, but he doesn't add anything special teams wise. I think he played it in 2020 and 2021 in limited snaps,
Very.
but unless being a wide receiver 4, 5, or 6 on this team, you have to have some type of special teams talent. And I just don't see where he adds that to this team. So that's why I just don't see where it fits. If he signs back on and finds a limited role being a downfield threat, all for it because of the connection he has with Josh Allen. But I just don't see where it fits. So I'm not building myself up for one way or the other to be either, oh, great, he's on the team. Let's see what he adds. Or, oh, darn, he goes and signs with New England, or he goes signs with Pittsburgh or whoever else. Because I don't think he's that big of a needle mover for opposing teams. And I don't think he's that big of a needle mover for the Buffalo Bills.
That's a great point. I agree with pretty much every single thing you said. The big thing is this: if the Bills were to sign him tomorrow, I wouldn't be mad. To your point, I wouldn't be mad about it. I'd be like, all right, well, let's see what happens this summer. My expectations would not be there for him. I agree with you about the Keon Coleman thing very much as well. I kind of want to go. Let's spend a few minutes here and look at this objectively, because again, a lot of people, they hear the name Gabe Davis reunion with the Bills and they're like, hell no, he sucks. There are lots of things. And look, there's some, not no truth to he doesn't suck. That's not what I'm saying. But I could certainly understand why people would have no interest in having him back here. And we'll discuss some of that. But to just jump to that conclusion in 2 seconds, like, I feel like let's take a breath here and let's just kind of go through the pros and cons. And I got a couple pros and I got a couple cons, some of them that you've already hit on. And then I'll kind of make that decision. And so we're clear, by the way, I don't think the Bills are going to sign Gabe Davis. It's funny though, on Sunday's show, my Sunday night live stream that I do with Joe from Queens, he likes to do this segment called True or False. And he'll ask me some Bills stuff, some Sabres stuff, some pop culture. We have a lot of fun with it. And he was a lazy piece of shit last week, and he forgot to do his segment like he usually has down his questions, and he didn't do it. And I called him out. I was expecting. I was like, all right, so what do you got for your true and false this week? And he goes, I didn't do it. I'm like, well, what the fuck, Anyway, he goes, oh, I got one for you. True or false? Will Gabe Davis ever play for the Buffalo Bills again? Because I think there were some kind of rumblings that he could get cut. So he asked me that Sunday. And at first I said false immediately. But then he said ever. And I'm like, oh, hold on now, man. You never know. The Bills have a recent history of former players who go elsewhere.
Come back,
Sometimes it
yeah.
works out a little bit, sometimes it doesn't, but they end up back here because they really liked being here. Gabe Davis liked being a Buffalo Bill. I promise you that Gabe Davis loved Buffalo and his teammates loved him as well. I mean, he was literally a captain on the team. Let's not forget that shit. But anyway, I said at first I was like balls. Then I'm like, oh, hold on a second now. It's just funny because now 4 days later, where I'm having this discussion with here, PK here on the podcast, and it's a real possibility. Anyway, pros, he has proven production in the past. I mean, he wasn't the greatest number 2 receiver in the NFL, but he's been a starter. He's had important moments. He obviously, that Kansas City Chief game, nobody will ever forget that, what he did in that game. 4 touchdowns, 200 yards receiving. He also had some moments besides that. It wasn't just one game. I remember The Pittsburgh game, he had 3 catches. 2 of them were bombs. He's had some big games. And we're talking about the pros here, so I won't talk about the other stuff. So he's got some proven production, is what I'm saying. He is a guy who can get down the field and make a big play. We've seen that plenty with Gabe Davis on the plus side. He is one of the better blockers in the NFL at wide receiver. That might be his greatest strength. He is a hell of a blocker. Like Mac, you use Matt Collins as an example. One example I will, Matt Collins was a really good blocker. Gabe Davis is even a better blocker. So you could put that in the pro column. He knows his team very well. He knows this system, although it's changed some because now, Dorsey was the GM or the OC and now it's Brady, but he knows Brady. He knows his team. He knows the system well. Again, a very popular player in that locker room amongst his teammates and somebody who just knows his city and what the Buffalo Bills mean to fans very well. So you got that. And then the last thing, like I said, when I first gave my thoughts about this is I think the expectations would be much lower this time around. If he signed tomorrow, he'd be in a dogfight at camp to make the team. There's no even given that he'd make the team, let alone be a star. So those are your pros. The cons, he's yet, and you brought this up and you're spot on, man. He is yet another wide receiver on this team who pretty much essentially has 0 special teams value. Now, could he play special teams? Sure, I guess. He did play special teams, to your point, 2020, 2021. Very limited, though. Like 8-9% of special team snaps he played for the Bills back then. So no special teams value. And you got Coleman, you got Shakir, you got Samuel, you got Josh Palmer, you got Elijah Moore. Ain't none of those dudes playing special teams. So we can have every receiver on your team who don't play special teams. Is Dwayne Carter going to be a gunner at this point? Is that Oliver going to be a gunner? Because that's what at some point you got to have receivers out there, right? So there's that. Of course, unreliable hands. He suffers from drops, and he had some bad drops for the Bills. And the last thing that I really got in the cons too is you hit on this. I think he would be an indictment to the progress of Keon Coleman because he's kind of the same type of player, a big guy who could block, get down the field well, kind of make some things happen improvisionally, but he's not a great route runner. He doesn't separate and he doesn't have the consistent hands. Very much like a younger Keon Coleman, so there's a lot to weigh, ain't it?
Yeah, I mean, the bigger question also is, yes, he loved his time here in Buffalo, but does he see the writing on the wall of there's not much room for playing time here? Like Pittsburgh just traded George Pickens to Dallas. There's an opening there. Cleveland's has some openings. New England has pretty much nobody. Does he want to go reconnect with Stephon Diggs? So I believe it's going to be, if Bills call, he's going to pick up the phone. It's going to be, okay, what's this conversation? It's probably going to be a vet minimum. You're going to get him on a massive discount. And like you mentioned right off the bat, lower expectations can be very beneficial to him. But does he look at it and go, okay, I'm still on the younger side here. I can still go out and maybe make a bit more money, but have a bigger role on a different team and try to go out and get another big time contract before I reach the age of 30. And, when receivers reach the age of 30, it's kind of on the down peak of their career. So it's not just, do the Bills want him? Because I think a lot of Bills fans out there are under the assumption, if Bills want him, they're going to get him. It could be that maybe the Bills do want him, but he chooses another opportunity out there that it's like, okay, I can go out there and be a wide receiver 2 or 3 on this one, get 60 to 70% of snaps rather than go to the Buffalo Bills, have to earn a roster spot, and then hopefully I make the team and maybe get 10, 15 snaps a game. So it's always two-sided. So a lot of Bills fans are always out there going, if Buffalo wants him, they're going to get him. It's not it's not full on that, okay, Bills make the phone call, they're going to sign him if they want him. It could be, there's plenty of other opportunities out there, and maybe he just waits closer to camp. And if somebody goes down, that's a bigger opportunity for him too. I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean, Keenan Allen's still sitting out there. I know he's much older and a different style wide receiver, but there's still big time wide receivers out there on the open market. Amari Cooper as well. So there could be a different opportunity that presents itself that might not just be the Buffalo Bills.
100%. That's a really good point too. It's not like Gabe is going to sit at home and say, I wonder if the Bills are going to call me. And then if they don't, I guess at that point, I'll start to look around for another team to play for. It does take two to tangle. And I would be surprised if Gabe Davis, as much as he likes Buffalo and likes being a Buffalo Bill, I would be surprised if he would want to come to a situation where, again, if he were to sign right now today, I would say he would have, if everybody stayed healthy, maybe a 50% chance at best
Yeah.
of making this football team. And I'm sure he would have to be able to play at least some special teams. The funny thing about Gabe, and you brought this up, it feels like, because it was so long ago, 13 seconds feels so long ago. And, we've been talking about Gabe Davis for just so long that it feels like he's an old guy.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I just looked it up when you were talking. He's only 26, and he just turned 26 in April 1st. So he is still young. He still has potentially a lot of quality football in him. You mentioned the Patriots. They had a million receivers, but they got Stephon Diggs and nothing really else proven after that. Pittsburgh could be obviously a potential fit now with Pickens, which, by the way, that was kind of a surprise. I'm not surprised Pickens got traded, but I was a little bit surprised that he went to Dallas. Anyway, yeah, so he goes to Dallas. There's teams out there, what I'm saying, that he probably would have a better opportunity with Elijah Moore. So Elijah Moore signs after the draft. And I know a lot of people were saying, well, to today's points, if you sign Gabe Davis, well, then, maybe you get rid of Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore won't make the team. But I don't look at it this way because, PK, what's been the problem? What was the problem? There weren't a lot of problems with the Bills' offense last year. I mean, we know that. They scored 30 points, 8 straight games. Brandon Beane will let you know that every time he's on WGR now. I'll let you know how historically good this offense was and that we shouldn't be bitching about it. But the issue with the offense and receivers was the separation, right? I mean, guys just weren't open enough. That was a problem. Elijah Moore is a speed guy who can separate out the line quickly. Gabe Davis, again, is kind of like Keon Coleman. What he doesn't do well is separate. He doesn't create separation. So I don't agree with that. How you're going to get guys, you don't have enough guys who separate, and your solution is to get another guy who doesn't separate. It just make it make sense to me. So in that regards, I don't. But with Elijah Moore, a lot of people, again, cutting him, and they're like, well, Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel are going to battle out of camp. Here's the news flash for you, PK, and everyone listening. Curtis Samuel ain't going nowhere this season, okay? Because that was my original thought, too. I'm like, you know what? If Curtis Samuel ain't playing that good, no looking good, someone get rid of him. But there ain't no way the Bills are cutting him. Even if you cut him post June 1st, you'd be eating $8.6 million of dead cap money, and you would be saving like $400K. Unless he is historically awful at camp and dropping everything, you're just going to eat $8.6 million. I don't see that. Could it happen? Hypothetically, sure. Elijah Moore takes over his role. Gabe Davis, if he signed with the Bills, can be that guy. Whatever, dude. It's not happening. Not happening. What did you think about Elijah Moore, by the way?
I think it's a low risk type of signing, and it's a little ironic that Brandon Beane has this whole rant, and then a few hours later he signs Elijah Moore. But I do like it because going into the draft in his first full season, there was some hype behind him. He was an early draft pick. I like the addition of it because it's a low risk, high reward type of player. He's not coming in to be a wide receiver 2, 3, possibly even 4, but he's coming in to add that dimension that Buffalo doesn't have, is that bit of speed. And if he can connect with Josh Allen, it's by far the best quarterback he's ever played with. So I do like the addition. Again, it's low risk, high reward. Will it pan out? I'm going in with low expectations with it, and it pans out. I absolutely love it. But I'm very interested to see what type of offense with a healthy Curtis Samuel. Do we see what he looked like? And I understand he was hurt the first half, or are we going to get the Curtis Samuel that we saw in the second half that leads into this one? Can Shakir take that next step? Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid's health. So adding more to this offense, it will give them another dynamic to it, but it will be interesting to see if he even makes the team. Like, it's no guarantee that he even makes the team. I currently I have him penciled in to make the team, but
Yeah.
it's still ways to go. It's only May, and they could add another guy. I don't see it happening, but they could make a trade. So it will be interesting. I did like the signing. I do like the signing because I do think he still has that hype. I do think he still has skill, and I just don't know if it's been fully tapped in. I don't expect him to come out and blow everybody away. I don't expect him to come out here and lead the team in receptions or yards or anything like that. But if he's getting 30 to 40 receptions and he's sitting around 500 yards and it adds that speed dynamic to this offense, I mean, it's a huge, huge win.
Last year, if we would have been talking at the beginning of May, and I would have said, hey, PK, do you expect Matt Collins to lead the team in touchdown receptions? You probably would have said no. In fact, I'm quite confident you would have said no. Last thought
I
on
asked how many injuries ahead of him.
100%. Last point on Gabe Davis, too. And look, it's fun. It's early May. The draft just went down.
Dead zone.
Rookie mini camps coming, the schedule release, OTAs. There just ain't a lot of shit going on. So, a conversation about Gabe Davis on the day he gets cut, it makes for a fun YouTube thumbnail. It makes for a nice little catchy, clickbaity kind of title. It makes for a nice little segment of sports talk here on Talking Buffalo, but I really don't see it happening. And the last point, too, about Gabe that a lot of people were kind of railing on, and in fairness to the railers, they're not wrong either. Josh Allen played some of his worst numbers, his worst completion percentage, some of his ugliest turnovers historically, especially in 2023, came when he targeted Gabe Davis, trying to, squeeze a ball in there that just it wasn't open and one there. There were a couple instances where a ball literally went off Gabe Davis's hands. I remember that Tampa game on Thursday night when they lost, or Denver game, I'm sorry, when they lost to Russ Wilson. Turnover was directly Gabe's fault. Bad drops. It felt like Josh was more erratic when he was targeting Gabe Davis. You agree with that? And it's kind of, I know that was the past, and maybe Josh has grown up and matured since then, but I do remember some ugly, ugly Josh Allen football when targeting good old Gabe Davis.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens when he's a downfield threat. You're trying to feed that needle, and this has only been a full season that he hasn't even been here. So it hasn't been like Josh Allen had this magic awakening when Gabe Davis left, because he was here and like one season ago. So I do agree. I think part of that is the downfield threat aspect of it, where he was still trying to hit those home run balls. And I mean, I'm not putting it all on Gabe Davis. Some of those downfield threats were just way off the target. I don't want to rail against Josh Allen because he's MVP, he's the greatest player, but he has not been the same type of downfield threat thrower that we saw early in his career. He's kind of been hit or miss a lot. And again, those are low percentage throws, so the percentages are going to be very low, but it just seemed like there was a lot more misses, especially when targeting Gabe Davis than in past. I just don't know if it's we'll see if Elijah Moore can unlock that because of his speed that Gabe Davis doesn't have down the field. But I do agree that eliminating Gabe Davis from this offense eliminated those low percentage throws down the field and those some on risk taking. And I'm not saying that it was all Gabe Davis, but Josh Allen did win the MVP when Gabe Davis was not on the team. Yeah. Stephon Diggs wasn't on the team.
Stephon Diggs wasn't on the team either.
Yeah.
A lot less forced balls. Let's just put it that way.
Yep.
He wasn't feeding egos and just trying to force a lot of footballs when it came to that. Look, at the end of the day, though, I do think Gabe Davis is just, it's going to have a lot more opportunity somewhere. And it does speak to the fact, which is funny and ironic, that for all the complaining about that a lot of people have done when it comes to the Bills and having a pretty weak wide receiver room, that a guy who has been in the system, who had an historically great playoff game and 4 touchdowns, all that stuff, big plays, 26 years old still, a former captain on this team, and there's not really any interest in bringing him back. That tells you, folks, that this wide receiver room is not as bad as some people certainly make it out to be. And I will say this about Elijah Moore. I also, like you, I do like the signing. I don't have the greatest expectations for him, but you know what? I do have some expectations for him. 61 catches with the Browns last year on a doo-doo ass team with doo-doo ass quarterback, which
Yeah.
he's had pretty much his entire career, is relatively impressive. And I've seen some Cover One film breakdowns of him, just doing a really good job of getting open. I think I saw a stat he had the fifth worst target rate in the NFL, meaning quarterbacks made uncatchable throw or passes to him. Like almost 30% of the passes to him were uncatchable. It was fifth most in the NFL. So that stuff all kind of does give me some optimism for him. And I do think going into the draft, Brandon Beane hasn't confirmed this, but I think it's pretty obvious. They talked to Elijah Moore before the draft, and they said, well, we're going to see what happens in the draft, and let's circle back. And I think that's exactly what happened. And I do think Brandon Beane kind of knew what was coming when he got on GR last week and railed on those guys a little bit. But I will say this last point here with the Bills. I still have a little bit of pause because what were we doing a year or so ago after the Bills signed Curtis Samuel? We were talking about, he played in Washington with, was it Sam Howell and whoever the hell was his quarterback in Carolina before that. And we're like, this dude has never played with a real quarterback. And he had 1,000-yard season, I believe, in Carolina or something like that back in 2020. But the last handful of years, he's played with scrubby quarterbacks. Oh, now he's going to play with Josh Allen, one of the best in the NFL. Didn't really move the needle too much, though, did he? Even though he did come on to your point at the end of the year. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of how I'm with Elijah. I'm going to be a little careful to just use the shitty quarterback excuse for the reason why he hasn't been a little more productive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I'm coming in with low expectations, but he does perk my interest to see what type of player he can be on this team. Maybe he could be a diamond in the rough that truly does just need a great quarterback, or he could just be another one that's coming on and it's just, okay, there's a reason that he has not broke out with other teams. But like you said, 61 receptions last year with Cleveland when you're running out Deshaun Watson and Dorian Thomas-Robinson and even Jameis Winston. Yes, everybody in fantasy loves Jameis Winston, but there's a reason that he had the fifth most uncatchable targets. So it will be interesting. He will be one that I'm going to keep my eye on. But again, my expectations are low, and if you can exceed them, great. If you don't, it's a wide receiver 5. To me, it's one step above Claypool last year, where it was like, okay, I don't even think Claypool is going to make the team. But he's a name. We'll see what happens. Elijah Moore, a different type of wide receiver, but I will keep my eye on him to see if he can add that extra dynamic to this offense.
What a great unintentional segue to what's next. We've both used the term here in the last 5 minutes, low expectations. That is exactly what it is right now when you talk about the Buffalo Sabres and low expectations. Let's take a real quick break, come back, and we're going to talk about some things going on with the Buffalo Sabres that, I don't know, man, it just makes me laugh. Be right back. All right, I'm back here. PK, Buffalo Sports Collective. Fun Gabe Davis conversation. I kind of enjoyed that, man. It's fun to think about just because there's so many ways that things can go, but who knows? By the time people hear this, like I said, he might have already signed with somebody else. But let's kind of switch gears here a little bit, or a lot, I should say, and talk Buffalo Sabres. Let's get to some actual news because they have been making news, or at least newsworthy stuff coming out of Saberland. The big one announced on Wednesday, they added Eric Staal as special assistant to the general manager. And the Dwight Schrute memes were flying right away with the assistant to the regional manager. Stuff. I laughed. I saw it. I laughed. I'm like, okay. Mike Harrington, and I'll listen. Mike, who does not have a good sense of humor, just he does, I guess, at times. But anyway, let fans bitch. Let me bitch. Let me bitch to you. Let me bitch to everybody right now. It's kind of annoying me about Mike. Maybe Lance a little bit. Was going to the football, cover the Bills. Good for him. My guy, Joe Yurden, all you hockey guys out there, let fans rail. Let fans rant. People are watching the game still somehow. They're buying tickets. They're still buying merch. For whatever reason, they're still emotionally invested in the team. You let people say what they're going to say, man. Don't got to be the corrector. This isn't college. You're not a professor. Let people bitch and rail. That's what I'm saying. Now, all that, Mike had a good point. He wasn't wrong because he did say many teams, I'm quoting him here, many teams have prominent former NHLers in these special assistants roles. Off the top of my head, you have guys like Jason Spezza from Pittsburgh, Justin Williams, Carolina, Vincent LeCavalier, Montreal, Robert Luongo, Florida, and Shane Doan from Toronto, and now Eric Staal. And he said, this is a good thing. I'm not saying much wrong. I just think it's freaking hilarious that we're waiting daily because there's been a lot of buzz that Kevyn Adams may not be the general manager. Not that he was going to get fired, but they were going to kind of shift roles. He was going to go into something else in front office. So we've been kind of waiting to see if something would happen with GM or, other coaches, this and that. And the news we get is that Eric Staal is going to report to Kevyn Adams and be his special assistant. What are your thoughts? What do you think about this?
So I think that it can be twofold. I do think Mike is right by this is a common theme around the league, but I also think that the fans have a right to complain because they have lost all type of trust and respect with this organization. So no matter what you do, they could have gone out and gotten the best advisor to the GM and the fans would still hate it and down talk it because it's been 14 years. Like there's nothing the Buffalo Sabres can do. I mean, they already used their golden ticket with Lindy Ruff last year and all that good grace is gone. Like there's no other good grace back. So as good, this could be the best special assistant to the GM that's ever been made. He could bring in tons of players, but it's going to be made fun of and it's going to be talked down to because the organization's just a joke right now. It's just when you have this lack of success for so many years, no matter what you do, nobody's going to have faith in the move. So I do like the move, but to me, it's like a nothing burger until you actually get something done. Like we're having discussions in the whole offseason about what we can do next year because we're still going to cover the Sabres, but how do we cover them? Because we don't want to come on the show after each game and just talk negatively. Nobody wants to listen to that. I'll give credit all out like for days with the content creators that are able to talk about the Buffalo Sabres productively and good coverage of the team because for some reason they still love them and I give them full praise for it. But we're outside trying to have a conversation of how to even cover this team because we don't want to talk negatively anymore. So it could be a great move moving forward and a step to bring in big time players. But I can't get myself around to care much about this one because I'm on a record. They're never making the playoffs ever again. And I hope I'm wrong, but they're never going to make the playoffs again. It's a cursed organization that is run by a bunch of jokers.
My take is this. Like, man, Eric Staal ain't doing shit. We ain't doing shit. We ain't going to the locker room and tell players how to handle being better when you're in the midst of a losing streak. So it doesn't.
He was here for 30 games, so he has full experience about this.
Christ, man. I mean, look, it's I feel like it's a window dressing move. I really do. He'll be there to encourage. He'll have some conversations with players. That doesn't hurt. I'm not saying it's hurting the team. I'm just saying no one gives it. Ain't nothing coming of this. Who gives a shit? It's kind of like more different role, but I'll go back to football. Like when Marv Levy was and I got to use air quotes if you're watching on the video side, he was the general manager of the Bills. He was the freaking mouthpiece for Ralph Wilson. That's literally what he was. Okay. He was not the real general manager of this football team. It didn't mean shit. Now, did Marv have a good relationship with some of the players? Did he have some conversation with the players? Sure. Did he, help them along the way a little bit? Maybe, I guess. But football-wise, it wasn't making the Buffalo Bills any better. Eric Stahl's not going into that locker room, and what's he going to tell Tage Thompson or Rasmus Dahlin that have been losing for fucking 7 years now? What's he going to tell them to make them feel any better or comfortable or, to help them get off the snag quicker so, a 6-game losing streak doesn't become a 9-game losing streak? Get out of here, man. That's not moving the needle. It ain't doing shit. You want to move the needle, get rid of Kevyn Adams. Go have him be the special assistant to the regional manager of scouting and videotaping and all that other bullshit. Seriously, or have him just be the guy who sits next to Terry at the games. I don't care what you're going to do. Get a real hockey guy in there with experience. And by the way, there were rumors, you got to get another guy in here who who had former GM experience. And then they go and they bring in Eric Staal. Ain't helping. It's not doing anything, PK. I'm telling you now, this ain't doing shit. I think Lance Lazowski, props to him, by the way. I think he might have had an article in the Buffalo News about like kind of what his role is expected to be. I don't even remember because it was so forgettable and laughable that I've already forgot about it. I didn't write it down, but get out of here. He ain't doing shit. He ain't doing
my
shit.
only other thought that I was just thinking about as you were talking about that is, and again, he's never been a GM in the league. He's never held a front office position. That's Eric Staal, that is. I'm almost wondering, because there has been rumblings out there and rumors out there about how other GMs around the league view Kevyn Adams. I'm wondering, again, this is a long shot, but it just came to my head. I wonder if them bringing in Eric Staal gives the teams around the league, like when they're on the trade conversation with Kevyn Adams, they're talking to Kevyn Adams and Eric Staal sitting next to him. I wonder how much more credibility that might give him because you have a bigger name like Eric Staal next to him. Again, he's never held front office position, but everyone around the league knows Eric Staal. So I wonder if somehow this is, yes, window dressing, but also gives more of a respectable position from a Kevyn Adams when he's picking up the phone with other teams. Again, long shot. Maybe it's just a name value, but it just popped in my head.
I don't think it's a long shot. And let's say, for the sake of discussion, that in part, let's just say that has something to do with why they brought Eric Staal in. Not the only reason, but let's just say it has something to do with it. It just makes it more laughable to me that Kevyn Adams is still your general manager. You get what I'm saying at the end of the day. More Sabres news, by the way. NHL insider Frank Saravelli, and I'm using a quote from his article. This is regarding Seth Appert. And he said, sources also indicated that assistant coach Seth Appert has also taken an increased, if not unofficial, role with a voice in hockey operations, decisions, and scouting. What? Listen, I'll tell you what. I'm here's why I would be for that. Does that mean he's going to get the fuck away from the power play and have nothing to do with special teams? Zero. If he's got zero to do with that, I don't care what title you give him or what he's doing in the offices at Saberland, whatever. Get him away from the power play. But that's, again, these guys just fail at what they're doing and they get promoted. Is this a promotion, a reshuffle? Does Terry really not want to pay people, or does he want to fire? You don't want to fire people because they don't want to have to pay them not to work at this point. I just don't get it. I thought if there was going to be one lock this offseason, one lock was Ruff would keep his job and the rest of those coaching staffs were all going to go clean house. Don't seem like that's going to be the case. What do you think about this, man? An increased, if not unofficial, role with a voice in hockey operations.
Yeah, it's one of two things or both, and I have no idea what it could be. It could either be that Terry is once again putting his faith and thoughts on running the organization in the wrong hands, which he's done so many times since he took over ownership of this team, or Kevyn Adams went into that meeting with Terry Pegula and laid out a plan of, okay, if I give this guy an increased role, if I give this guy an increased role, if I bring this guy in, and if that's the case, you just made it even more of a reason. You said it before. Why the heck is he in that GM position if he needs all these other guys to step up? And again, GM role, there's so many other moving pieces behind the scenes that they have to rely on. So not fully blaming it, but it's just, it's a horrible look to give another guy who's failed in the position that he's in. He just got promoted to that spot, but you're going to give him another promotion, unofficial or whatever it is, a bigger role in the organization that has failed so many times. It's just, I get to a point where you don't want to keep recycling GMs and doing the same thing, but it also goes back to the point of, because I mean, you listen to all the other people that go on, well, you can't just keep firing GMs after 2 years. You got to give them opportunity. But if they're the wrong GM after 2 years, why would you give them 3 or 4 more years? You've given Kevyn Adams how many years? So it just seems like I'm at a loss for words with the organization now. We've been covering this team for 4 years on the podcast, and I've been a fan since I was 3, but I'm at a loss for words with this organization. It's just one of those two things, that either Terry keeps putting the wrong faith in the players, which is a problem, or Kevyn Adams is saying, here's my plan to build this organization up. This is why I should keep my job. And that's also a problem. So either way, it's a big problem for me.
I actually forgot about it. It was Andrew Peters from after the whistle. Actually, that first reporter, credit to him too. He deserves credit because he was putting it out there first, not the news people wanted to hear, but that after a series of meetings or whatever with Kevyn and Terry, that Kevyn is going to stay on as GM. And I just the mentions. Look, I use social media. You use social media. We have our reasons. We're always promoting our content. In my case, I'm just on there too damn much. But I also know it's a cesspool, and I don't like to promote it to other people who don't go into the mud. They're not going through the slog of it every day. I generally don't like to promote social media, especially Twitter. That said, we're at a time of year right now where Severance is done. The Pit, I love that show on HBO Max. That just ended. The Last of Us was on. The Righteous Gemstones, just the series ended. And people are like, well, I need some shit to entertain me. If you go to any Sabres tweet, pick your tweet, put it out there, and you go look at the mentions on whatever it is, like Eric Staal being named, special assistant, whatever. Kevyn Adams being retained, the Andrew Peters tweet, anything. Hell, innocent victims. Today's Brian Duff's birthday. Happy birthday, Duffers. Go look at the mentions. When Brian Duff, all he does is host a pregame, and go look at what people are saying. It is pure entertainment, if nothing else, now on social media, because everybody knows what a clown show this organization truly, truly is. And it's funny. So Seth Appert probably gets a promotion. Kevyn Adams is staying on. They bring in a guy who was here for 30 games, and you're not wrong, by the way. And again, it is common, and he will bring some credibility here. He is a winner. I still don't think he's moving the needle. I still think it's just a hire to make a hire. But anyway, those guys are in. And then who do they fire? You know who they fire? Their strength and fucking conditioning coach, Ed Gannon. That was the move so far. That's what they've done. They fired their strength and conditioning coach. That's what they've done. Other than Rasmus Dahlin, by the way, who he missed 9 games and he was injured twice. Health-wise, the Sabres were pretty damn healthy. Like, you can't blame, except for Dahlin missing games, because that was big. But you can't say that this was a team where key players were always out of the lineup. They were always missing these key guys, a lot of injuries. This was a injury-riddled team. Not really, dude. Not really. Tage, Paterka, Tuck, McLeod, Power, Byram, Benson, all those guys played at least 75 games for the Buffalo Sabres this year. Did they get nicked up? Sure, every team gets nicked up. But I didn't see anything injury-wise or anything like that to suggest that the move you're going to make is to fire your strength and conditioning coach. My gut tells me he probably was the contract that Pegula would have to pay out the least amount of money to fire. You know what I mean? Or the cheapest to replace him with somebody else financially. I don't know, man. But to me, again, you want to just talk about things that I just feel like are embarrassing. And maybe if this was a competitively good team, it wouldn't feel that way. But because everything they do is just mocked, and deservedly so at this point, I can't help but laugh at shit like that,
Yeah, we can't even call it a scapegoat, because not to discredit that field whatsoever, but who cares? Like, it's not it's a factor in the game, but it's not a factor that actually matters. And you said it, like, all the players were healthy. The power play sucked, the penalty kill sucked, the goaltending sucked, the defense sucked. That's the positions, and you're keeping likely keeping all the assistants. But I for sure thought, okay, they're probably going to keep Kevyn Adams. They're going to keep Lindy Ruff, and they're going to clean house on the assistants. And Lindy Ruff's actually going to be able to hire his own assistants. Not even going to do that. Like, again, the faith in this team, we've already seen polls from it and everything like that are so low, and they've gotten even lower because you're just going to pretty much run it back. And it's just, I don't know what else they can do. Like, even if all they can do is make the playoffs. Like, if you break this drought, you win some people back, but I don't know if they're capable of doing that because of who's in charge. It's just, I don't know where to go from this. And even firing, like I said, it can't even be a scapegoat, because how many fans actually care about that position? If you want to make some noise, fire Seth Appert, fire the assistant coaches, and let Lindy Ruff bring in. And again, I blame Lindy Ruff for a lot of this last year as well. Part of this is on him as well for not getting this team where they need to be. But it's just, if you're going to run it back and your only change up is to promote some guys, bring in a face of your GM position, and fire your strength and conditioning coach, it's just, I don't know what this summer in October and November is going to look like.
Anytime I talk about the Sabres on this show, which is not a lot, I'll do anything for content. I kind of feel like at this point, dude, I should get a blood pressure machine or whatever. My blood pressure constantly goes up, and it's not an act, it's not a ruse. It's like legit. I legitimately get fucking annoyed. And that's another thing. I swear 20 times more when I'm talking about the Sabres than I do anything else on the show. My blood pressure goes up. I start swearing. It's just so frustrating because you can only dream of being among the top half of the teams that make the playoffs. I mean, we're talking like we're trying to win a division here, trying to win a conference or not. No, 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 no. Just be one of the top 8 teams in your conference once, just once. That's why they're the worst organization in sports, not just the NHL. The NHL is obvious. They're worse than the Jets, and that is saying a lot because the Jets are terrible. But I truly think the Sabres are worse. And you know what the funniest thing is, too? During this whole Kevyn Adams might get reshuffled because nobody thought he was going to get fired, but he was going to get reshuffling. I was talking to during this process, Chad DeMinicis, Chris Ostrander from Two in the Box, guys that are good hockey guys that have a lot of respect for, that are pretty plugged into what's going on. And I think they were hearing some of the same things as well, that it was going to be, well, Kevyn Adams is going to get kicked upstairs and probably Jason Karmotis is going to take over and be the new GM, the guy who was, the assistant general manager. And now Lance Lazowski reported per sources with the Buffalo News on Wednesday that he's likely not returning at all. Just funny because he's a lot to do with the Rochester Hammers right now. The one thing that seems to be going fucking right with this organization, and he's probably not coming back. It's just, do you feel right now as somebody who, you talk about the team and other stuff at Buffalo Sports Collective, but you're a fan, you've been a fan for a long time. Is this rock bottom right now? Do you feel fan confidence right now is at an all-time low, even worse than the tank years, which the team was bad? Probably they were worse than they are now, but it kind of felt like you had a purpose maybe at that time, even though a lot of people didn't agree with what that purpose was. I feel personally, PK, that this is rock bottom. This is as bad as it gets. This is the least trustful and the least confident that fans have ever been with the Buffalo Sabres.
So I agree with that last point. I don't agree with your first point. I do believe that this is the lowest that the fan base has ever been, but I do not believe it's rock bottom because I do not believe there is a rock bottom with this organization. I think if you do reach that, there's a trap door and it's lower because every time you think you've reached it, there's another lower spot. So as much as I do agree that this is the lowest the organization's ever been, and even with those tank years, I was one that was rooting on the tank, still believe it was the right move. They just executed it poorly afterwards. I'm standing on my ground. I don't care what everybody else says. I don't even care if I'm wrong. I'm going to fight that till the death of me, that the tank was the right move. It just was executed poorly afterwards. But even then, like you mentioned, there was a purpose. They lost on purpose. You were supposed to be losing on purpose to reach the end goal, which they got. But yeah, there's just no faith in this organization to do anything. Like I said, like you said, go read the comments under any type of post. Yeah. Like if you're bored at work, killing the last 15 minutes, scroll through it and have a great last 15 minutes of your shift. It's just, I don't know what they can do besides win to earn anybody's respect around the league or fan bases back. Like I've said it so many times, you've lost so many generations of fans now. Like my one buddy's got 3 kids. He absolutely loved the Sabres growing up. He wishes that he could show that his kids exactly what they're missing, but there's just nothing to show them. It's just, it's such a failure that this city is bleeding and ready to love this organization again. You saw what happened when you hired Lindy Ruff. They've sucked for how many years, and you hire Lindy Ruff and everybody buys back in. They're ready to buy back in, but it's just, there's such little faith in it that I don't know if they do struggle again this year and they do not make the playoffs once again. I really, as much as it's going to hurt, I don't know if they can win people back. It's at that point.
My birthday was yesterday, okay? And if I played for the Buffalo Sabres or if I had anything to do with that organization, you know what I would ask for my birthday, what my birthday gift would be, my birthday wish? Do not fucking put it out on Twitter that it is my birthday. Keep it quiet. I won't tell nobody. You don't tell nobody. I don't want anybody out there knowing it's my birthday if I'm a member of the Buffalo Sabres organization, because I don't want y'all in my mentions. Absolutely would be the absolute humiliating thing, the worst. Again, even my guy Duffers is going through the ringer today, and he don't do nothing wrong. Duff ain't doing nothing wrong. I'm gonna make one last prediction here. Then I want to wrap up here with a couple minutes of Bandits talk because they might win another championship. But I'm gonna make a prediction ahead of time here. So we're in May. If this shit gets to, and we saw rumblings, a little bit of whispers of it, if this team is in the similar position come next January or February, where they're in the bottom 3 in the Eastern Conference and they're a good 8 points out of a wild card spot, the Rasmus Dahlin wanting to get his ass out of here, steam is going to pick up a lot more. And in fairness to him, unlike Jack Eichel, I think it was a mixed bag. Like Jack wanted out. A lot of people, including me, for the most part, didn't blame him. Like, who wants to spend your career rotting away in Buffalo in this organization? But he also handled some things wrong too, as well. Rasmus Dahlin ain't doing nothing wrong. He's just sick of fucking losing. That's what it comes down to. He is sick and tired of it. He is a generational type talent. He's one of the best defensemen in this entire league. And again, he's just wilting away his career here in Buffalo, his good years, which he's getting in his prime now. He's going to want to get out of here. And I think the way he is, somebody who will stand in front of a camera and kind of say what's on his mind, would it surprise you, PK, if this time next February that Rasmus Dahlin is not being incredibly critical and vocal and possibly even saying, I want out? Hear reports of it at least anyway.
So I believe you'd hear reports. I don't know if you would ever hear him go in front of a mic because I don't think he's that type of player. I don't even know if he would be critical of the management over the organization. I think he would still be critical of the on-ice product, but I think there would be conversations going on behind the books. And again, he downplayed that whole conversation from last year perfectly. He stood in front of the mic and said it's all BS, whatever. But I think there is smoke, and the more people talk about it, the more it's going to be in his face, and the more conversations and the more thought process that he's going to go in. It's like, I'm in the prime of my career right now, and I'm wasting it on an organization where, yes, I love this organization. I love the city and I love the players I'm playing for, but there comes a time where players want to get out and go to a position where they know they can win. And I don't think he'll ever go in front of a microphone and proclaim or even give hints that he wants out. But I would not doubt if come January and they're still in the bottom of the barrel, which I'm fully expecting them to be, because why wouldn't you expect after this many years? I would expect him to be having conversations behind the scenes like, hey, if the opportunity presents itself, I wouldn't mind going to play for a playoff team. And maybe even Tage would have those type of conversations as well. Like, honestly, I'm one of those type, and I've never reached high pinnacles of playing sports or anything like that, but even I would reach that point where it's like, okay, I'm kind of getting sick of this. I kind of want to see if the grass is greener on the other side. And you can't really blame them after this time because of how much they fumbled in this organization.
Yeah, Rasmus Dahlin or Tage Thompson, either of those guys could be kind of that Buffalo Bills version to some degree, at least, like, of Josh Allen. But instead, they're headed towards that path where they're going to be known as the Kyle Williams. Now Kyle didn't make technical playoffs in his career last year, but went through that whole entire drought, a great career, one of the best players in the league at his position, and it didn't mean anything because he never even got to play in the playoffs. And that's kind of where Rasmus and Tage are. That's where they're headed right now. Unless things pick up, I can't talk about them anymore. Let's finish for a couple minutes of Bandits talk, because again, the Bandits are yet again playing for a championship. Game 1, not this Friday, May 16th. And they're going to be playing either Saskatchewan or Halifax, correct? That's still to be determined. We don't know as of this recording because the Bandits swept. The other series is still going on and finishes this weekend. 5th straight championship appearance. They're trying to win their 3rd in a row. I went up and I had to look this shit up because it's just so impressive. They're trying to win their 7th title. They've lost 7 times in the finals too, though. So 13 times they've been in the championship. Let's start here, dude. Tell me how they got there, all right? Because again, this is a team, they're going for a 3-peat right now. They've been, I remember they were undefeated early in the season, then they kind of lost their way a little bit, struggled a little bit, but obviously they're back playing good lacrosse when it matters the most. Talk about the team that just the average typical Buffalo sports fan is missing out on that we take for granted. And through our frustrations with the Bills and especially the Sabres, there is a team here that is competing and winning championships all the time. Just talk about this team this year.
Yeah, if you want to feel what the arena used to feel like when the Sabres were really good, just go
Uh-huh.
to a Bandits game. I mean, even just a regular season game and you'll feel it. Yes, they started off 7-0 and they were going on this beyond it wasn't a stretch where they could just replicate it for the entire season the way they were playing. The goaltender was unbelievable, the defense was unbelievable, the forwards were unbelievable. It was just everything was working perfectly, and they got out to that 7-0 record. And then to me, and me and Phil were kind of having that conversation on the Buffalo Sports Collective, and just going, I think they're doing Kansas City-esque type of things where they reached a point and then they're just coasting. Like they realize that, okay, we're
Yeah.
7-0. The chances of us missing the playoffs, even if we got to start the playoffs on the road, not that big of a deal. Because I think they went 6-5 down the stretch. And you're going into the playoffs. You just lost 14-11 in your final game on the road to Georgia, and Georgia made the playoffs by doing it. And I'm going, game meant nothing. They already clinched the number one seed. It meant nothing. But they came on versus Colorado and Halifax, the games 16 and 17 of their schedule, and they locked up the number one seed. So you could see it's in there. It's ready to go. And then the first playoff game, they win 5-4. And it's just like Matt Vince is playing unbelievable. They didn't score in the entire second half and they still won. And then they go to, and they host the next week versus Vancouver and they win 9-3. I mean, Matt Vince stood on his head at 42 years old. He's still the greatest goaltender and possibly greatest lacrosse player that's ever played this game. And you're like, okay, yeah, we were right. They were just coasting into the playoffs. They realized that, okay, we reached the point where, okay, Saskatchewan's getting a little too close for the number one seed here. Let's crank this up. Let's end it. And we'll worry about everything else. But we were kind of getting a little criticized by just going like, they're good. Like they've done this. They've been there. What's going on in the regular season, as long as they stay healthy, it doesn't matter to us. As long as they hit their stride perfectly, and they did it. And it's just, you're going into the playoffs, and they did get the benefit because Saskatchewan and Halifax last week, they only had one game where Buffalo and Vancouver had two because it's so difficult to travel into Saskatchewan and Halifax. So trying to coordinate that in the same weekend wasn't possible. So no matter what, if Buffalo swept that series or Vancouver swept that series, you were going to get a bye week and get healthier, which is good for Josh Burns' right ankle, I think it is. And Kyle Matisse is working his way back too. So you get the benefit of watching those two teams that might have to go to game 3. So they might be playing 3 games in like 8 days, which is unbelievable. But yeah, they have a very legit, realistic shot to go three-peat, which has only ever been done one other time. And I think they have the pieces to do it. They've hit the stride perfectly in the playoffs. It's just, hopefully there wasn't any nicks and bruises from that series that we don't know about, and they're able to use this 1 week advantage. And hopefully that series goes game 3, because you want those guys as tired and as beat up as possible going into this home game coming up in like 8 days.
You talk about the Bandits and how they kind of like coasted for a while. And that's a team that has a championship mentality. And then you think about the loser mentality of the Buffalo Sabres, which we spent a good half hour talking about. Culture and just confidence means a lot in sports. And you see that with the Buffalo Bandits. It's like when you got it's time to crank it up, you crank it up. When you're the Sabres and you desperately look, it might not feel like they give a shit sometimes the way they play. They do. They're sick of hearing it. They don't want to be losers. And they're not even lovable losers. They're just losers. You know what I mean? Right now, like fans don't like the Sabres by and large. But just the difference in mentality. And when it comes to the Bandits, this is the last thing I want to hit on, because I was thinking, and I didn't really fully realize this, but I think John Tavares may be Buffalo's most all-time successful sports figure, period. Not just Bandits, just all-time sports figure, period. I was going to set this through some stats before we recorded this, and he's first all-time in the history of the league in goals, first all-time in points. He's second in games played. He won 3 MVPs, and he played in an era with Gary Gates. And I remember the Gate brothers, by the way. When I was younger, I actually kind of was in the lacrosse, like in the 90s. And then it completely fell off. And now it's started to come back a little bit, at least in recent years. And now he's also on his 5th trip to the finals as coach. He's been the head coach since 2019. Just we'll end on a good note today because we had some Gabe Davis fun, some Sabres not fun. Let's go back to a little bit of fun here. So about John Tavares, man. I don't think I'm off base. Like, he might literally be the best Buffalo sports figure ever.
Yeah, I mean, there's been calls that he needs to have a statue out in the plaza. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. They need some kind of a representation for the Buffalo Bandits out there. He's been a part of every single season with the Buffalo Bandits, which is unbelievable because this isn't even his full-time job. Like, he's a teacher up in Canada. That's what makes this so much more unbelievable is, yes, you have possibly the greatest goaltender of all time in between the pipes in Matt Vince. And there's questions if he is the best lacrosse player of all time. There's no question that up in the discussion and on the Mount Rushmore is John Tavares, and he's in your own barn. And it's unbelievable that because you see Wayne Gretzky, he tried to be behind the bench. It didn't work out. There's so many great players that try to go be head coaches and it just doesn't work. He was successful from the get-go. Like, he was an assistant coach before he took over as head coach. He was even a co-head coach with, I believe it was Rich Kilgore, before he even took over the reins fully. But in the NLL award finalists just got nominated or released as of this recording on Wednesday. He wasn't even up for head coach of the year. He's one of those players, or I'm sorry, one of those coaches that because of the success of the Buffalo Bandits, he gets discredited because of how good the talent is on the field. He went to 5 straight finals, and I know they don't vote on the playoff records and all that kind of stuff, but because of how talented the Buffalo Bandits are, he gets discredited with the amount of talent or the coaching job that he does. Do you know how hard it is to keep those type of players together when any one of those players like Kluch or Kyle Buchanan or Chase Frazier could go over on any other team in the league and be one of those star players on that team, but they're reduced to depth roles and they're accepting of that because of the guy behind the bench. And that's John Tavares. It's just as great of a player as he is, he could also go down as being one of, if not the greatest head coach in NL history as well. It's just, we named our episode on Monday. It's how stupid good they are. It's stupid good how talented of a player and head coach he is. No one person should be that skilled in one area in their life, and he just happens to be it. And what's stupid is it's a part-time job for him.
Yeah, and I mean, most people know this too. He's the uncle of Tavares, the star hockey player as well. And it's so he's so unassuming and kind of low key in Buffalo, despite the fact, again, that in my opinion, and a lot of people's, you said it, he deserves a statue. He does. That's not far fetched at all. But anyway, I've seen him going to Imperial Pizza a couple of times. People don't even know who it is.
Yeah.
Like, he's in there waiting for some food. I know who he is. I'm like, yo, that's from John Tavares, man. How you not know that, man? You got Pat Kane jerseys and statues and shit all up at Imperial Pizza all over South Buffalo. I'm like, John Tavares, man, he's the best maybe ever in Buffalo. It's wild to me. All right, we're going to get out of here. By the way, though, I kind of been noticing the whole show. I'm going to pull you on the full screen. What's that t-shirt you got going on? You got a little.
Yeah, it's not in the store or anything. We do have our own storefront, but our producer sister kind of does work. So she kind of, Phil, my co-producer or co-host, last year during one of the Bandits games, they had a wing eating contest for wing night. And don't go back and watch it because he kind of choked. He literally choked on screen eating chicken wings because he goes, my mouth was so dry, I didn't drink the water. But we wanted something because we're like, oh, free publicity out there. Let's make t-shirts. So she just did a couple t-shirts. I just threw it on. It was because I was out working.
Oh, like, that's awesome, man. Well, I'll tell you, I got some. I was laughing because that's a cool shirt. I got some new Talking Buffalo merch coming pretty soon, and I am going to whore it out all over the place. I guarantee you, folks, of that. Anyway, all right, that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you follow PK at PK_BSC. Check out the Buffalo Sports Collective, PK and Phil. They crush it, obviously, with the Bandits in the championship. I'm especially looking forward to hearing the next handful of episodes. Hopefully, you and I can hook up when the championship is over, and I'll get some perspective from you on that. And who knows, man, we might actually have some more fun Sabre news and stuff to hit on as well. I appreciate you, though, buddy.
I appreciate it always.
All right, guys, I will be back. One more episode. I'm going to be doing a pod bag episode. Lots of Bills and a few Sabre things coming up your way tomorrow. Talk to you guys then.